Hello?
This is just composting it. I mean, you're just putting waste in it, and there's no machine, there's no button that I'm pressing, and it's not making things disappear. There's no uh, AI, there is no IoT and things like that. And that's and that's something we take pride in. We feel that the more simpler the solution is, the better the adoption, the more fun we can make it, and the more natural it kind of feels to the users. And I think it's that simplicity has kind of worked in our advantage more than anything. And the third thing is unskilled labor versus recycling guru, and that's where we uh, try to tackle the perception of people, where we look at people who are working in the waste space and say, oh, is that an unskilled labor? Or we tend to say the waste picker, or in some cities they use a weird term of scavengers, versus saying that actually that person is a recycling guru and kind of knows a lot about materials, and knows a lot about waste management that we don't do. Can we change that, shift that mindset? So it's been our kind of prerogative to get our customers to think about that. Then fourth, haul far versus manage near. We already spoke about then, can we manage waste decentrally, mixed or segregate? This one needs no introduction. A big part of our work has been how do we get people to change their behaviors with waste and get them to actually segregate waste into different categories in the first place. How can they do it at home, and how can they do it more simply, maybe make it more fun? And the next one, you see the girl with the green t-shirt where she's saying yucky or cool. How can composting be cool? Something that, sometimes people say has worms and maggots and smell. How could we turn something like that into something cool to do, and created like a movement, and so that people can kind of come together and say, oh wow, I really want to be a part of this, I want to compost. uh, Throw versus no. uh, uh, it's been our mission that we get our customers to actually know a lot more about uh, uh, so when they interact with composting, to actually know a lot more about the system in general. uh, Getting them to think more on, say, dry waste and where your things go. And I think we'll also do this activity after this presentation, which will also drive people to think more on those lines. Recycle or reduce. And I think the other day, me and Niharika were talking about, there are these 3 R's of uh, sustainability. Then there were 5 R's, then there were 7 R's. So the list doesn't end. But even before reduce, we feel rethink. For example, how do we rethink our choices in the first place before we even think of reducing or recycling? Recycling is something that comes much late, and recycling has never been a solution. It's just been uh, just been something really important to do, because we now have that material. What do we do with it after it uh, 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 reaches its life cycle? But can we get people to kind of reduce? Can we get them to rethink in the first place whether this is something that needs to be done or not? Uh, and the next thing being out of sight and out of mind versus visible and challenging. And that was also very important. We felt when we created our composters and we got people to do composting at home or in their communities, we wanted it to be very visible and bare. Doing it in your balcony, doing it in your garden area, doing it in a place where people interact with it, they pass by it, they look at it when they're running, the kids kind of play around it. That's when the things got interesting, and we got a lot of success in terms of adoption, a lot of success in terms of people actually, wonderful stories of communities sharing their journey with other communities, and then it propagating on. And then waste or resource. So getting people to think about, oh, whether this thing that or material that I'm dealing with is just a waste, or is it a resource? It's the same thing. But when you compost and you realize the benefits of something as beautiful as compost, uh, then you kind of think, oh, I was looking at this in terms of waste, but is it something more than that? And I think that's true with any kind of waste. Then the next thing being not my job versus partly my job. That's a really big one. I think we 7 times out of 10, when we meet people and tell them, oh, you need to manage waste better, the first thing we get is, oh, but isn't the government supposed to do it? Aren't we paying taxes for it? But then, how do you get customers to realize that unmanaged waste or mismanaged waste, so to speak, kind of hits them back? So when we talk of health problems or sanitation issues or community issues, it's all around your community, your family, or the people you know are actually going and passing through that waste. So how can we be blind to it? So getting people to just make that shift and say, okay, maybe the systems around are not sufficient to be handling 6,000 tons of waste a day, which is by the way the number or the amount of waste generated by a city like Bangalore in one day. uh, 6,000 tons, and it's startling, that amount. And then we look at our landfills, which are completely closed down, and some of them are not functional. Some of them have created so many groundwater issues that it's just not funny. Uh, then should I do something? And we've been lucky as a brand. I think we've stumbled upon some really awesome people who are customers and who just taken it upon themselves to get this change done in the community. And we usually call them champions. And it's gotten us to also kind of feel that there are those people who want to really do it in their communities. And lastly, in the last picture on the right bottom, you must be seeing throw this or throw that. So the first picture, the black colored garbage bag, is a very common sight. It's kind of it's synonymous with waste now, and it's a lot of mixed waste put together in a bag. Versus when you actually manage it better, and when people actually see a difference in the amount of waste that goes out of their household, and they see that, oh, if this is multiplied as an impact, it's huge. Because if you're talking of, say, 50,000 families doing composting in their household, that's 50,000 kilos of organic waste kept out of landfills on a daily basis. So when we kind of calculate that in terms of or in terms of a month or in terms of a year, the numbers kind of add up to be very huge. But also, on the contrary, they add up to be very less and you compare it to the number of people living in the country. So the last thought at the end of this slide is that there's a huge potential. There's a whole world out there that is not composting, and I think that's where we feel we really need to keep going and focus on all these different aspects, focus on it more, get people to talk about it more, and make sure that more and more people compost in the long run. And Mridu, how much time do I have?
You have about 5 minutes.
Okay. So that's the thing, and so that's where our solutions come in, where we say the problem is many people have never considered composting as an alternative waste management process. They have, first of all, people don't know, and that was an interesting part. So when we were growing and we would initially go to do our composting demos, usually it would start by explaining to people that composting exists. It's something that you can do. It's natural, and it's been adopted as a solution many places across the world. But now, to be honest, this problem has reduced from what we see. I think in the last 5 to 6 years, there's been enough spoken of. Uh, the whole Swachh Bharat Abhiyan thing happened, where the least it did was that it kind of started this movement of people who spoke to each other. Finally, the governments and the municipalities were also talking to each other and asking, okay, how do we do this? And so now when we go do demonstrations of composting and getting people to rethink the way they consume and the way they throw, we figure out that people do know composting now. So the tipping point now is, how do we get them to kind of make that decision to pick up a composter and actually start doing it at home? That's a big challenge. Objective, of course, is to convert them into believers, and our solution is we convince them and provide good answers to their concerns. Our iconic visuals, as we call them, are used by many communities to convince their members about the facts around waste. Uh, that also, uh, it, to put it another way, uh, we feel in a business like composting, or something that we are trying to do, the amount of hand holding that you need to do, or many business people will say the amount of money that you need to spend on actually uh, making sure that your customers are doing it right, they're getting it okay, they're not worried about composting, it's huge. And then the products that we put out, a composter, for example, a terracotta composter, we have people who've been using the same composter for the last 14 years. So we are talking of great customer service and a product that lasts you tens of years and costs you, say, about 3,000 rupees, enables you to take care of the planet and reduce the amount of impact that you're having on it. uh, it just makes so much sense. And when we kind of compare it to people, and I think we'll do it in the activity later also, when we say our phones, we kind of replace our phone every 8 months, for example, and it uh, so that's where we look at this whole thing and we say, oh, maybe this is also something that we kind of add value to. But that's the thing about why we do things the way we do at Daily Dump, and what we do. But I'll also like to just quickly show people about uh, 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 something about our products, where we are saying, I hope everyone can see the terracotta composters on this thing. The reason I show this is that all that thinking that I spoke about, of thinking decentrally, thinking Indian, thinking contextual, it finally led to these products. And as you can see, these stack terracotta composters, uh, they make composting not only uh, aesthetic, they also make it fun and very simple. And I think when we stick to those three things of it being fun, simple, and aesthetic, and that's also one of the primary reasons we've stuck around to be one of the major companies in the composting space for so long, because I think then the adaptability increases a lot, and the amount of pride people get in actually doing this also increases immensely. And the stories that we get of people getting their first harvest of compost, of them smelling it, and them going, wow, this is some, I couldn't imagine my waste to smell like this, and it's wonderful. So we get stories like that, and then I think that's when a person is converted, so to speak. And then they tell their friends, so we've always had this word of mouth thing going for us. And to be honest, sometimes we just sit together as a team and wonder, like, okay, did we just get lucky here, or is this being run by people or being done by customers who are just sharing these stories far and wide? And trust me, it's just that how we've been growing organically. And I'll just scroll down. As you can see, there's various forms and shapes of these composters being used by uh, people in their households. And again, as you see, the second point, again, handmade by skilled craftspeople. Before my thing ends, I think I'll also mention a little bit about that, where we most of these terracotta composters we get made by artisans across the country, where we not only tie up with the potter group and say, oh, can you guys make composters for us, this is the thing. So that's not how we work. We actually kind of take up these big potter clusters, which is a group of a lot of families who've been into pottery all their lives. We also want to kind of develop their entrepreneurial skill, get them to think at scale and not just at in terms of designing the pots beautifully, or just looking at the art aspect of it. How can they sell more? How can they kind of have regular supply chains? How can they plan for contingency? So that's also been a lot of work that has gone on behind this, and that's a lot of hard work put in to just make sure that we have a consistent supply of terracotta uh, 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 pots. Because sometimes when if I just go up and I show you, say, this Khamba 40 large, there's a composter. So people usually come to us and say, oh, 2,700 rupees for a composter. I can just get a pot from the side of the road and do composting. And we say, yes, please do. It's necessary, it's important. And if you're thinking of doing it DIY, doing it with a bucket full of holes, doing it in a pit, I don't know, doing it on a terrace, please do it. It's something that is important to do. It's necessary. It's the need of the hour. What we are saying is, if you're living in an urban space, if you have a if you feel you have the jitters when you think of composting, you feel there's going to be bad looking maggots crawling all over your balcony, and if you have any such fears, then we are the people to come to, because we'll give you something that is designed to do this, that will definitely work. And if it doesn't, the moment you call us, you'll feel good talking to somebody who listens to you and talks to you properly. And that's all we are saying. uh, but composting is much more than just daily dump. It's nature. It's something that will keep on happening. All of us on this call are going to be a part of compost one day. And I think at that note, I should end it.
Thank you, Amar. I think that was extremely insightful and also humorous. I think at the end of the day, it definitely does boil down to that intention action gap that we all face. And you've given us more than enough reasons to believe it. And I think another reason that we also have these local chapters is for each session to be a starting point to help you in your climate change journey and just move towards climate change mitigation. And on that note, what we can do is have 5 minutes of question and answers. So from the audience, if anyone wants to ask Amar and Niharika anything, please feel free to do so.
Maybe people can type it in the chat box also, and we'll be happy to answer.
Okay, well, I have a question, so I can begin. So Amar, I've heard a lot about how intuitive and well-designed the khambas actually are. So could you probably share like one insight that went with the design of these khambas that makes it so different and unique?
Different and unique, I wouldn't. It'll be hard to answer that, Mridu, because at the time when the khambas were introduced, I don't think there was any other composting solution in the market, and that's something that I've actually missed out during the talk. And uh, we've actually opened up a composting market in the country. You know, we have now various other companies or NGOs who are trying to also get people to compost in different ways and forms. But at that time there was nothing. So it was a lot of prototyping. And founder Poonam, who actually designed the khamba at that time, she went around. We've changed the designs a lot. Initially there were these big holes on the sides. We were trying to use a net to make sure the maggots don't come out. So it's been through a lot of different stages. But the intention behind it, again, like I was saying, was to not only make it beautiful, to make it very usable. And hence this whole stacking thing came around, where we thought we need to keep it in a enclosed space. People are not going to be ready to spend their entire balcony on waste management. And similarly, people might not want to do it in all of their porch. So we wanted to make something that just sits on the side of a balcony. It is sitting on a side and not really disturbing people, but it's very noticeable. You can see it in the corner. So that was the intention. And Niharika, if you want to add something to that, please feel free.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes,
This
yes.
is Rocha. So, Amar, first of all, I'm all for composting, but I'd like to know um, where people dwelling in urban areas can like use their compost month after month. As in, there should be a spot or a place or an organization that takes compost from them, right?
Hmm.
So how do we manage that?
Okay, that's a wonderful question, actually. Um, so there have been talks of that. We've been in circles where we speak to Swachh Bharat officials, and there've been questions of, oh, are we going to have a compost problem one day now that we have a waste
Mm,
problem? So one of our biggest challenges is also how do we increase the perception of compost as a product in the consumer's mind,
mm,
uh, in terms of home composting. And I think people on the call who do home composting might also agree, the amount of compost that you get on a monthly basis is actually uh, not that high. Like, you wouldn't get like 20 kilos of compost in a month. It'll
okay.
actually be much lesser,
Mm-hmm.
because when you're putting your waste in a composter, let's say in 10 days you put 10 kilos, and in 30 days you put 30 kilos, it actually
Mm-hmm.
shrinks down to about 70%.
Okay.
Or it shrinks by 70%. So it shrinks down to around 30%. So you're
Mm,
actually only getting about 5 to 10 kilos of compost. And even if
okay.
you have 4 or 5 pots at home, you can use it there.
Mm,
Secondly, we tell our customers that if you don't want to use it there, why don't you go to the neighborhood tree and do a pranam and make a friend of the tree, and put it there,
mm,
because compost is going to be consumed by the soil. and
mm.
and 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 it's great. That really works. That actually gets people to
True.
go to their local garden and their thing and do it.
Yeah.
uh,
One
but
other thing they
also
can
on
do
a
is maybe go to the local nursery and speak to them
Yeah.
about whether they would like to have a free supply of compost every few months. Maybe that can be done too.
Absolutely. So tying up with nurseries is one. So there are a couple of developments that have happened. So for example, in apartment complexes, when they compost together,
Mm-hmm.
there's lots of compost that comes out there. So like, for example, we run a program in Bangalore where if a community has lots of compost, we actually go and buy back the compost from them. We started that
Okay.
for people to kind of also realize that maybe what they're producing also has some value in terms of
Yeah.
money.
Mm.
Not great amounts of money. We buy it back at 2 rupees a kilo,
Mm.
but it still attaches a value to it. And then our
Right.
challenge then is, as a business, how do we get all that compost to the soil? Because ultimately, if our customers are not putting that compost in the soil, it's not really completing that whole life cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
So there we are, like your idea, we're tying up with nurseries, we're tying up with people who do organic gardening or
Mm.
farming. We've tied up with mainstream farmers also, where we worked with the government. And by the way, for everyone's this thing, Swachh Bharat actually has a thing where every city is supposed to send uh, city compost, they call it, back to the farmers in the same state. So if there's Bangalore, there's Delhi, there's actually a program like that. And there are Swachh Bharat officers who've been working to kind of enable that. But those things are long term systemic changes, so that's
Yeah.
also happening. So they're also planning a subsidy, by the way. So there might be a time in the coming year when, if you
Mm-hmm.
compost, you can actually get your taxes, some part of your taxes waived off.
Mm.
That also
That's great.
that'll be interesting to see how people kind of react to that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. Thanks.
No
I
problem.
have a couple of questions in the Zoom group chat.
Okay.
I'm going to request Amar to please take that up in the chat box itself, because we're running out of time and we should break.
Oh, okay.
So Amar, if that's fine with you, could you reply? I think there are about 3 questions. So if you could take that up on chat separately at any point during the session, that should be fine.
Okay.
I also have another question. So Shivani, I'm from Mumbai.
Oh, okay. Yes, Shivani.
Hi. So I wanted to ask if I have two questions, if that's all right. Um, first I just started composting about 2-3 weeks ago, and I had to take some. So my home doesn't have a balcony, and I had to take special permissions from the society secretary and all of those things to allow me to keep a separate bin on the ground floor on the backside of my society. And they were a little hesitant, but then they were okay about it. But I want to ask, is there any chance, I mean, are there solutions for a house where Mumbai, if you would know, has a big space constraint. So our homes are much smaller than most other cities. So our windows are also kind of compact. So are there solutions where we can do composting in our windows? But I mean, like, so one time when I tried about a year ago, we had these flies come over, which is obvious. I mean, that's waste at the end of the day, so it's going to attract flies. But is there a solution for us to start composting at our homes and not have to go downstairs and stuff like that? I mean, is there anything?
For composting in homes without balconies, Shivani, then you might want to try this a Bokashi method of composting. It's called.
Okay.
It's like a Japanese method. If you search for Bokashi bins or something on Amazon, you'll probably find some solutions there also. We don't do that at Daily Dump. We do a natural, regular aerobic sort of composting.
So this isn't Bokashi composting isn't natural. I don't know
Bokashi
that.
is just another way to do it. It's like, you take waste, you put it in a enclosed box, and you kind of pickle it, and then there's a powder that they give that you mix with it later on. But I think that's what people can try in homes without balconies, because that can be done inside your kitchen or inside a room itself.
Okay,
This
I
regular
will look it up.
composting you can't do.
Right,
Yeah.
I'll look it up, because that's my only problem. Because if I have to eventually convince my society people to also start doing this, it's a little inconvenient for everybody to start going down, put their waste in the bin. It's a lot easier when you can do it right in your home. So yeah. My second question was also, if is Daily Dump at any point of time, or is there any thought of venturing into plastic recycling, or in any way educating about plastic packaging?
Oh yeah, so we've absolutely. So one is it's a part of our it's a part of a lot of our demonstrations and work that we do with communities itself. But also we actually had started one venture called Recycle Guru, like that same term that I had used there. And the idea was to how do we increase the how do we take all the wonderful kabadi walas or the recyclers that are already there in the city and kind of develop their ecosystem, because we felt a lot of people were trying to find solutions where they wanted a new business model altogether. But we already have such a strong system that has been working in our smaller towns and cities and in even bigger cities for so long, where the idea was then how could we call those people recycle gurus, and then kind of simplifying the supply chain of that and making it more profitable and things like that. But once you get into that whole plastic recycling industry, that's a very different ball game altogether, because the costs there are very high. The amounts people are willing to pay, or sometimes people are not even willing to pay for giving their waste. They actually they rather want payment for waste. Uh, and
I
and and
remember.
and because of the difference between the amount of cost and the actual return, and the perception of how good that service is and how much it should be valued at, I think that's where we fall behind as a country. Like, for example, a waste picker, so to speak, I don't know what they call them there in New York, is actually paid 30% more salary than the teachers there, or some such figure. So when you look at that versus India, so if you increase the perception of the importance of that service, I think that's a big challenge. But we did try to answer your question in short, but we kind of failed. So right now it's just a website which is not really functional. But yeah, we did a lot of research, and hence
What
we're
is the
able to
website's name? Recycle Guru.
Recycle Guru. Yeah, you can Google that and you can
I will check it out.
find
Yeah.
it.
Thank you.
Okay. So I guess in the interest of time, there are other questions which maybe we can answer as during the act. Some of them I saw that could be answered during the activity as well. So Mridu, if you want, we can maybe move forward.
Yeah, sure. That would be good. So what we're going to do now is break into the activity. I'm going to take a minute to put everyone into a breakout room. And essentially, the link to the activity has been shared in the same email where the link to the meeting has been shared. So if everyone can take a minute to log into their Gmail accounts and come onto the Google slide, the first slide on the deck has the instructions for it. Each group is going to be led by a team captain. Your team captains know who they are, so essentially they will facilitate and lead your session. In the case that there are any doubts, I will be jumping from room to room to help clarify that. But also, if you guys want to stretch your legs, take a break, just get some water, then 2 minutes is a good window. Hi guys,
Hey,
how's it going?
so we're taking like a minute or two just to fill out that the questionnaire. Has everyone chosen an item or
Yeah, I've chosen one item.
Okay, so we have until 8 p.m. for this activity, so you can plan your agenda accordingly.
So we have to finish this by 8 p.m. Is it, Mridu?
Yeah. So 8 p.m. I'll close all the rooms, and
Okay.
then one person from your group or two people can essentially just talk to us about your takeaways. It could be whatever you guys have found interesting from the activity.
Cool. Okay. So I think by 7:50,
Cool.
guys, let's just choose the thing and get back here, maybe.
Yeah, sounds good.
Hi guys, how's it going?
Hi. Yeah, we're all picking up one item each, and maybe we could do one more because there's 5 items in this thing. Sheet. Right?
Oh, are you all 4 people?
Yeah, we're 4 people here.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Is there anything you need from me? I just came to check if there was anything.
Seems okay.
Cool. So we have until 8 p.m. for this activity. So
Okay.
you guys can plan your
Sure.
work.
Okay.
Hello? Mridu, I think you're on mute.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Am I supposed to be somewhere else? Like
Yeah,
in the...
but I don't see. Oh, I think you need to join. I've moved you to Breakout Room 4, but it says you haven't accepted it.
Can you try again? Because I didn't get any invite.
I don't think I can wait. Let me just see if I can try to move you from there.
Oh, wait.
Did you get it? Yeah, okay.
Bathroom maybe. Yeah, sure.
Hi guys, how's it going?
Good. We've started filling in our sheet, and then we have plans to discuss before filling in further. So,
Okay, cool. You guys have until 8 p.m. so we're running a little short on time, so you can manage your work around that.
okay, got it.
All right, cool. See you.
Bye.
Yeah, I know about the environmental sustainable alternative. One is bioenzyme.
Enzyme.
Yeah, I only know about bioenzyme. And no, I don't know about the details of production. I just know that there is no recycling symbol in it, so it is not recyclable. So it is very low recyclable product.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
There's another sheet, Sana.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
How do
do
I...
I decide when I'm done with it? Once in 2 months, it's sufficient for my family. So when it's done, I'm gonna buy the new one.
And this one is a very old one actually, but I've been using it a lot for other things now, so I decided to go with this. Hi Mridu.
Hi guys, how's it going?
It's going well. We just picked the object, so we're discussing.
Okay, cool. So all good, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have until 8 p.m. To finish this activity.
Okay.
So you can work with that time in mind.
Okay. Thank you.
See you.
do we need to mention the item at this moment?
Mridu, could you answer that, please?
Yeah, sure. If you guys want to add your item, if you want to list it, that's fine. But at the end of this, which is around 8 p.m., what you're going to be sharing with the rest of the group is just the two most interesting items that you guys have within your group. And how you want to define interesting, again, is up to you. But sure, feel free. It's editable, so you guys are free to whatever you want.
Thank you.
Anshika?
Hi, Mridu, we are done.
Oh, hi guys. I think the others need another minute. So we'll resume the session at 8:05.
Sure.
It's good to have everyone. I hope that session was both fun and reflective. So fun, I think that's Ritwik and Amar's room. You guys want to go ahead and share with us what was the interesting item?
Do we share one item, Mridu, or what's the deal?
Well, in the interest of time, I would say one, but if you can't pick one, then I guess.
So Ritwik, you wanna, or Rucha, you
You
guys
can.
wanna?
I think Amar, you should take forward your e-waste one. Like I think that'd be a great example for reference. Like if you could speak about yours.
Okay, sure. And
Yeah.
Rucha, you are. Do you agree?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Cool. Okay. So Mridu, we picked out one item which was headphones, because that's the nearest item that I could reach that moment. And so we discussed, okay, how often do we? So I go point by point and explain it. Is it?
Sure, whatever you guys find comfortable.
Okay. So the interesting thing was that say in something like headphones, we buy them once in 2 years, and it's essentially a kind of a product where you kind of you're listening to music basically. So how we mentioned we buy it is by looking at, say, reviews and also the brand of the product. And are we aware of at least two environmentally sustainable alternatives? No, not at all. None of us knew what is an alternative to a headphone because we've never really thought of it. And do we know details of production methods? Again, we had no idea about the production methods per se. But would that information change our buying decisions? I had written yes, it would change. I think Rutvik had mentioned in his item that maybe something like that doesn't really change buying decisions. So we had those two different answers. And how do I decide when I'm done with it? When the headphone stops producing good quality sound, basically, and something that I define as a good quality sound. And what do I do with it? Usually something like that just lies around the house, to be very honest, for quite some time. And you've already bought another item and you're using a new pair, and after a while you look at them and be like, okay, what are these doing here? Then you look for, okay, I'll give it to a recycler or and I think because of the work that I'm into, I kind of knew that e-waste recycling, it could be given to the specific centers. But Rutvik mentioned that he was not aware, for example, of where he can give it in the city of Bangalore. And where will this item be in 10 years? Again, no idea, because a headphone is made up of so many different things that it's hard to imagine that answer. And in an ideal condition, this item could be disposed by giving it to a e-waste center. I think what they do there is they separate the headphone into different parts and they kind of use the elements for whatever they're worth.
I think the one part that really is sticking with me is that there's no alternative to headphones.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's quite mind blowing. All
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah. Group 2. I don't think. Okay. Shavya, do you guys want to go next?
Yeah, Mridu, we don't mind. I'll just yeah. So I think we had a couple of interesting ones. So the most I'll just start with the first one. Okay, sorry. Yeah, we're extremely unsure about how milk cartons can be recycled or reused, or how can it work, because it, again, the ones which we use for Tetra Pak, we don't know what exactly it contains in order to be, recycled. So yeah, why we decide to buy it is because of safety reasons. And are we sure of I think Swapnil, if you could elaborate on this. I think
Yeah, so I've been trying to figure out if Tetra Packs are the best option than the plastic ones, is because Tetra Packs, they say that it has an option of recycling because there is paper, there is aluminum, and a thin layer of plastic. But I'm still unsure. I'm still looking for an answer if it can be recycled. Like, is that the best option? I have to buy a milk packet.
yeah. Yeah, we're not sure of the production details again and how it works. And yeah, when do we know once it's done, once it's completely consumed? So we usually either segregate or dispose it according to the waste. So it's probably going to dry waste. And then where will this item be in 10 years? Partly recycled, and in an ideal condition, probably completely recycled. So this is what we had about milk cartons. So another interesting one we had was Amazon packaging, which we think is mostly recyclable, but something we can't avoid. So when we decide that we can't get something at the store, we probably buy it on Amazon, which comes with packaging. Then are we aware of environmental sustainable alternatives? Not really. I mean, and ideally, if Amazon would be providing it, it would be great. And what do we do with it? We reuse it at home until it wears out, and then probably throw it in dry waste. And what will happen to it in 10 years? Probably land up in a landfill. And if it in an ideal condition, it would be probably recycled. Otherwise, it would be great if we had another alternative for packaging, because we end up buying a lot of products online and don't exactly know what to do with it. So that's what we had. And we actually had another one, but I don't think we have time. Do we? Okay.
If it's really interesting, feel free to share.
We do have about earbuds, but I think it's somewhere along the lines of we don't know how many parts of it can be reused, and because it can come with plastic, cotton, and all of these. So, I mean, in the interest of time, I think we could.
Yeah, I think like the takeaway from your group is really about how convenience trumps everything else. And with the example of the milk carton and the Amazon, it's just so easy that it's not a metric usually used when you decide whether you buy a product or you don't. And I think next. Yeah, Priya, do you guys want to go next?
Yeah, so our group actually had a bunch of interesting things, but I think I've chosen one which is essential, but we don't have alternatives to. And yeah, so Shivani will take over and explain.
Hi, so my product that I chose was, sorry, one sec, just go back to my ticket. Yeah, my product that I chose was blister pack of medicines. So how often do I buy it? It's monthly, honestly, because at the end of the day, it's a medicine and anybody at home will need it. And a lot of people are prescribed with year-long or lifelong medicines. So medicines are like a complete essential. How do I decide what I want to buy? Based on safety, to be honest. And also there's not much of an alternative when it comes to medicine. You have to buy either like a bottled one or like a blister packaged one. Am I aware of at least 2 environmental sustainable alternatives? Maybe one where it could, I'm not too sure, but it could probably be recycled with the other plastic material, but I'm not too sure of it, to be very honest. Do I know details of the production methods? Not really. Will knowing that information change my buying decisions? Again, not really, because again, it's an essential that I mean, even if it's a plastic one, I have to buy it. So that whether I buy it online or offline, that's not really the concern again. How do I decide when I'm done with it? When when the medicines that it holds are over and I have absolutely no use of it after that, like it becomes complete waste. When I'm done with it, what do I usually do, or how do I throw it away? Dispose it in dustbins. There is absolutely no other way I can think of. Where will it be in 10 years? Hurts to say, it'll definitely be in the landfill. In an ugly condition, how should this be disposed of? Honestly, with the kind of healthcare, with how much the healthcare has been in focus lately, with all the other products, there should be a systematic recycling process, or a sustainable way to get this disposed of, but not it. I don't think it can be done at a personal level. It needs a proper support or a proper resource to get this done. So yeah, a systematic recycling process or a chain or some help by the government or the authorities should be a little more available and accessible to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we think that we live in a world of choices and we're always faced with this paradox of choice. But I think the larger question definitely is that all the alternatives that we do have or seemingly do have, are they relevant, especially at a systematic level, like you mentioned very rightly? And I think that is the question that's definitely going to stick with me after this session. Yeah, for sure. Thanks for sharing. Vyoma, do you want to go next?
Sure. So the 4 items that we picked, 2 of them were, the usual ones like glass or cloth, which we knew a lot of answers to. But the other 2, which, stood out, where there was one which was a shuttlecock, and we didn't, know of a better alternative to pick for that, because the only alternative that you have to usual feather cork would be a plastic cork. So we picked that one, and the other one was the spectacles, which a lot of us do use on a day-to-day basis. But if I think of the previous pair that I use, I'm sure it's going to be in my cupboard, lying in some corner. So these were the 2 ones that we picked. And Amber, would you like to talk about the shuttlecock?
Sure. Thank you. So I chose the shuttlecock because I play a lot with badminton, and so there are 2 kinds of shuttlecock as mentioned by the team leader here. So one is the feather one, and the another one is the plastic base. So I don't have currently the plastic base, but generally I will explain the how it is, like my understanding about the current feather shuttlecock. So it is made up of feathers, and so this part is known as skirt, and the above is the head, which is made of PU. So PU is basically plastic only. So we can say it is a semi eco-friendly, not eco-friendly as well. So the head part is plastic, and the bottom part is feather, which can be recyclable and it can be decomposed. And the another one is the plastic one, which we use for fun and for activities. So the difference between both is that the plastic one is very cheaper than the feather one, and it is much durable. But the efficiency and the agileness of plastic one in the game is not as much as in the feather-based shuttlecock. So there was one question like, is there any alternative? So according to me, right now there is no such alternative. But the Badminton Federation have introduced, like they are trying to introduce synthetic based in the current events to develop similar to the feather one. Yeah.
So for this one, actually, Madhvi raised a question, important point in the chat, where she mentioned about how for complex products, a lot of time like function triumphs sustainability. But I mean, when I was thinking of the shuttlecock, it was such a simple and very small and comparatively cheaper product if you think of these things like headphones. But in spite of that function, a lot of times does triumph sustainability even there. So that was interesting. And the second product was spectacles. So Nivedita and Madhvi, anyone would like to speak about that one?
It wasn't my item, but I mean, what we just discussed was that I've never done anything to my spectacles. They've just been just lying there since my childhood, and max what I've ever done is return it to the shop. So I don't know whether they use that to kind of take out parts from it that are still usable, because once you use them, once the glass is damaged or you're changing the number and that shifts, there's really nothing. You can't pass it down to somebody. It can't, if it can't be reused, it can't be reused. It's probably metal, glass and plastic. So though I know that in specs there are some brands that come up with either very long lasting, so you really invest in a pair and you use it for years and years, which is another sustainable approach to using anything in life. So I guess that's the only real alternative, that you take care of a product and it's made in a durable way.
Yeah, I think a lot with this repair culture, something that has all of a sudden been trending since we have a lot more time during the lockdown. And I hope we continue to look at this repair culture in a very positive way. And I think the one theme that stands out from this group is the concept of time, right? When you put it in perspective of time, then things become more or less sustainable. And that definitely is one way of sort of measuring how sustainable or unsustainable a product is. And I think Anjali, I think your group is the last group, right?
Yes. Sarah, you take it away.
Okay. Hi. So our group also had like a bunch of things, but I'm gonna go over the first one. It's a shampoo bottle. I feel like we buy a lot of shampoo, all of us, and use it about 4 to 5 times a year. We buy it based on how big our bottle size is. And our decision to buy a shampoo was brand. And then we talked about if we were aware of environmentally sustainable alternatives. And I feel like a great idea from one of the members of the group was shampoo bars, which would not, of course, they wouldn't come in a plastic bottle, which we wouldn't know what to do with afterwards. And if there's any plastic-free shampoo bottles, for instance, like glass shampoo bottles, which we don't really know about. And then next question was, do I know the details of the production methods? No, we did not. And of course, knowing them would influence our buying decisions. We use it up until it's finished. And personally, I've never refilled a shampoo bottle. And we just keep buying new ones and throwing them away in recycle or bins. And then hopefully we hope that it's recycled in 10 years time and someone else is using the bottle. And in an ideal condition, how should this item be disposed? Everybody, like, we didn't have much idea about what we are doing with the shampoo bottle once it's finished, but definitely we want an alternative, which means producing less waste. We could use, like I said, shampoo bars. And yeah, so that was our first item. Another one was a can of pop, like Coca-Cola or something. And of course, the decision to buy that was the brand, but then that was actually my item, but a good alternative would be to not drink pop and drink water instead, because that's healthier, and buy reusable glass bottles of the pop. Another interesting thing was pillows or clothes. We felt like we don't know what goes into pillows these days. Sometimes it's cotton, sometimes it's polyester, and based on whatever the material they're made of, we don't really know what's happening to them once we don't use them. An alternative could be maybe coir pillows or something that we can keep using over and over again. Definitely, we would need some more idea about that. And yeah, then we discussed, yeah, for clothes, of course, we can do, sometimes sometimes we buy them because of trends or prices, but it's better to start buying them as we need them, because we all have a, let's face it, like I like retail therapy, but sometimes we just have organic cotton, hemp. We can reuse clothes that we already have, maybe not do a lot of online shopping. And we would try to get as much information as possible, and that will help us in buying decisions. Yeah, so of course, clothes, how do we decide when we get done with them, when we don't like them maybe? And see, it's always better to see if we can give them away to someone who needs them, or if we had those donation boxes where clothes can go to people who kind of, you know, need them more than us. There's so many people in the world who need clothes. Other than that, of course, they can end up in a landfill, but we can. So it was actually Sonika's item. Sonika, do you wanna talk about it a little bit more? Because I saw it says that they're used to make paper, and I don't really know much about that.
No, so I do know that you can do recycled paper with cloth straps, and I mean, if there was a way to do that, or I mean, get your stuff to a place or a company that does it, I would be very happy to send it to them. Yeah, sorry, I had to move away. My son was making too much noise.
Yeah, and so that was all the things that we had. Do you guys want to add something else to it? Anjali?
A lot of our discussion revolved around segregation itself. How some of us find it a little problematic to segregate things that are packaged with more than one material. So even with our shampoo bottles, it seems that the head of the shampoo is made of a slightly thicker plastic than the body, things like that. So when it comes to things that are packaged with more than one material, how do we go about recycling or upcycling or properly disposing them is something we were discussing.
Right, okay. I think there are lots of takeaways from that group, at least 5, 6 things that you guys spoke about. But definitely, I think when it comes to shampoo bottles, a very sustainable subscription model is an option. But I think another thing that at least I've begun doing is using natural ingredients like soap nut and shikakai. And I actually see a difference in my hair. And of course, I'm reducing the plastic. So yeah, I think that's something that we all can try as well. And I think Niharika, I'm sorry, I think I missed out on your group. I'm sorry about that. Do you guys want to go?
Sorry, it was a mute. So in ours, actually, I think Chetana, if you share about the mobile phone, especially since even though it's an electronic product, we know of one alternative, so that would be interesting.
Sure, yeah. So basically, like Amar spoke about the headphones, we also discussed about how it's an essential item, which is with everybody now, and it's replaced not just because it stopped working, but also based on trends, and there's a cooler model out there in the market and things like that. But there is one alternative that I knew about, which is called Fairphones. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it, but basically they try to do this in a sustainable way, manufacturing, disposing, and also like making it into a modular product where you can replace, say, a camera, the older one with the newer one and things like that. But we also spoke about how it is not so widespread. The fact that half of us haven't heard of it, maybe more than half, itself shows that it's not the best choice out there. Or maybe it is, and we need to adopt it as a society. So, yeah. I think the remaining points were similar to headphones. Did I miss something, Niharika?
No, I think that's.
I think Niharika has also shared a link to
Yeah, I've
Fairphone's
shared the
phone.
link to that one.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that was the wrap up for the activity. What I think Niharika is going to do next is actually validate all of our assumptions, questions, and also answer some of these thoughts that we've been having. Niharika, if you could quickly share your screen and give us those factual takeaways.
Okay. Yeah, so here we actually did a little this presentation that what are the different wastes and how do you do what do you do with it after it's waste. So we look at it as these different types of waste. There's e-waste like the mobile phones and the headphones that we discussed, the organic waste which we say you can compost, recyclables, plastic, glass, metals, paper, garden waste again similar to organic waste, bulky items which mattresses, paint buckets, furniture in general, and there is rejects which really do not fit into any of these, and then there's debris which is usually from construction material. So these are the different ones, and right now like we said, if it's getting mixed it's going to be a mess. So we should start, like segregation we say is the first step to starting with this. And if a city had to do this, they would need the space for it, they would need the people to have these separate handle these separate things, materials, and make it reach the right disposal method. It'll need a lot of technology. A lot of Western countries do get ahead of this because of this one thing, and also a process that it has to be set in place. So it can't just begin on what we have right now. So these are the ideal processes for all of this. So organic waste, if it's managed on site, which is what composting is, if it's wherever it's produced there itself, it is managed and converted to compost or biogas. It is reusable in its natural form. E-waste again, of course, has to be a little bit ward level because of the variety of materials within that one product. So if it is collected in one place and then sorted properly, it will reach the proper process. Again, garden waste best to be managed near the source. So if within a street or a neighborhood or a locality, if the leaf litter around the area is collected and converted into compost, that is actually much more beneficial than any chemical fertilizer that you would use. Recyclables can be recycled. Again, there is a little bit, this works, it doesn't work, it's a gray zone, but a lot of materials like especially glass and metals definitely are recyclables. So if they are segregated at source and it reaches the proper recyclers, it would definitely be a huge change. And then there is, of course, certain rejects which there really is no other alternative than to landfill it. So the idea is that if all of this is removed from the big bag of waste that you throw out, the amount of rejects would be very less. And then landfilling that much amount would not be as harmful as landfilling this entire amount. And I missed these last two. So debris, if it's construction waste, concrete, bricks and all that, it can be collected and converted and reused again. It has just to be managed by a particular person. Otherwise, we see it everywhere on these little lanes, tons of debris lying around. So if there basically needs someone to be, taking charge of that thing. Bulky items is kind of a again gray zone. Some things can be reused, some of them cannot be, and it of course takes up a lot of space. So that is something that has to be figured out. So here we have a few examples of how we can do row-to-row collection of waste. And if it's not, instead of collecting it every day, if it's separated in that space and it's composted there itself, it is much more better. So if the waste is collected properly, instead of plastic bags, we use plastic buckets, or there's a cage outside. So within that locality, it's collected there and composted in that specific locality, it's much better. And then we have the options of organic waste if it's not possible within a household, within the community, within the locality, and how it can be a little bit scaled up, but again not to a city level, because that again makes it again centralized, whereas we want to be looking at decentralized solutions. So yeah, beyond in this PPT, we just have more and more options of this about garden and leaf waste and what is the best method to be doing this, and what are our suggestions about what should the government do, what should communities do, what should individuals do. And if they start happening like that, it would be the best case scenario. Again, with dry waste, what can be done? Yeah. And sanitary waste, which is another red zone completely. So this PPT, by the way, is available through our website as well. So I'll share the link, and if everyone wants to go through it in much detail, you can definitely go through it. I'll just, glance over it. And all these different items, we've looked at what can be done. And again, e-waste, which is always a problem with when it comes to throwing out this waste. So yeah, and small changes that we can do if we start using different materials, if we can start imagining our life without these, how this waste can be disposed of in a proper way, and imagine the life in that situation, it would definitely bring more people to start doing that. So yeah, that's it. I'll share the link for this thing.
Thanks, Niharika. So just to reiterate on what Niharika said, if you guys have more questions about composting and segregation, reach out to Daily Dump. I'm sure Amar and Niharika will be more than happy to share more information. Before we close this session, I just want to share a small update on what projects we've been doing as a local community here in Bangalore. So all your team captains essentially are the people who form this core group. And I'm just going to take a minute to share my screen and show you what we've been up to. So over the last month, I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the Open IDEO plastic bag challenge. And this is something that we, in our free time, we meet up once or twice in a week to discuss the different ways in which we can work towards building a solution that supports a circular economy, a solution that is bagless at different points of the journey from purchase to consumption. And just to give you like a small glimpse of the kind of work we've been doing, we've been collaborating over the Miro board, and there's been a lot of learning, not just in terms of softwares, but also in terms of different canvases that we can use to create a system service model. And this is also an opportunity for any one of you out there who wants to be involved with us in a larger capacity. Feel free to reach out to me on Instagram or even email me. I will be sharing my email ID in the next email. And yeah, the next event is going to be on the first Monday of the next month. So I will also be sharing a link to the event. So if you all are interested and you want to register and attend the next one, please feel free to do so. And thank you. I hope you guys had a good time. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you start your journey towards climate change mitigation. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good month. Bye.
And Niharika.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Amar. Thanks, Niharika. Mridu, before we go, is there a link or something through which we can reach Amar and Niharika if we need to, like later on, like a email or a...
Yeah, sure. We'll just put it up in this.
Yeah, thanks.
I put my number and my email ID.
Yeah.
Feel free to call me, no problem.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, looks like no one wants to leave.
Okay, thanks, Mridu. Thank you for having us.
Thank you guys. I'm also leaving now.
Thank you so much for being here. I mean, that was super informative. I think we've all been cultured and educated to a different level,
Right.
especially with like waste segregation, composting.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Mridu. This is fun.
Thank
And
you,
I'm
Harika.
definitely looking forward to joining you guys for the next episode. I signed up on Climate Designers, so I'll see you.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
It's really, I did not know about this group actually, so I'd love to connect.
Thanks so much. See you next month then.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, guys.